Right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So today we have Ronee Andersen joining us, and this is the fourth series of our top 5 for small businesses. And as you probably know, today we're talking a lot about how to actually attract, retain, and engage your employees. And particularly for small businesses, I know this is critical. Just as if a person were to leave, it dramatically affects the team of a small business, as it might be a little different from a larger organization. So Ronee is going to be talking a lot. She has some great experience over the last 20 years. She's been in the HR professional. And I know you've served all the way from being on a team of 50 to all the way to 6,000 employees. And that kind of relates into working in a family-owned business, working in a private company, a publicly traded company, but also even working with city and government organizations. So quite a wealth of knowledge that Ronee has with us today. And she has her senior professional in HR and an MBA with an emphasis in HR as well. I know you have some certifications from both Cornell University and also Stanford University. And her main business is Ronee. It's coaching and consulting with Ronee, which she launched in 2019. So with that, Ronee, if you want to get us started today, and please know for everyone watching and listening that feel free to ask questions as we go along, and I'll ask those questions, and then we'll also have time at the end. But we really want to make this interactive as possible. So, yeah. Ronee, if you want to kick us off.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Diana. I appreciate it. And welcome everyone on this Wednesday morning. I want to tell you that I started to put these slides together right after the snowstorm on Easter. So that's part of the reason I was trying to make it summer and spring and bloom and that sort of thing. So that's why I decided to go with this theme. And I know yesterday was a beautiful day. So hopefully we're trending in the right direction with regards to weather for this time of year. So with that, I want to just highlight really quickly what we're going to talk about. So the first thing, we're going to talk about giving our employees love so that they never want to leave. That's, of course, appropriate love. And then I obviously that's an acronym, and we'll talk about what each of those are. And then we will talk about how to market your business to attract top talent. So the thing that you really need to start thinking about, if you haven't already, is that you need to put on a marketing hat when it comes to trying to attract new employees to your business. Then the other thing we want to talk about is how to interview for your cultural fit, because it's not just about their skills and that sort of thing. The other things that you want to interview for is, again, cultural fit. And don't really plan to talk about it much today, but the other thing is you probably know, is you want to also interview for their attitude, what kind of employee they are going to show up at work for you. And then with regards to retaining your top talent, we're going to talk about turning the Great Resignation into the Great Acknowledgement. You want to recognize your employees. And then what you want to, what employees want from you in order for them to, that should have said stay instead of say there. So what I always try to do when I talk to different groups of people is give you something that you're going to remember. So a lot of times when you go to training, as you know, a week later, somebody came up to you and said, so I heard that you went and listened to Ronee at her talk with regards to the top 5 for the Greater Des Moines Partnership. What did she talk about? What did you learn? Some of you would struggle to remember. And that's normal. It's not your fault. It's just the way our brains are and the way that we were designed. So I want to give you something that you can remember. So the thing here that you want to remember, obviously, is that the retention equals attention. So if you want to retain your top talent or retain your employees, the thing that you want to do is make sure that you give them attention. And I'll probably bring that up again later on here so that you can kind of ingrain that into your mind. But moving into giving them love, and what does that mean? Well, the L stands for to leverage leadership. So when I started decided to start my own business, the thing that I really wanted to, and one of the things that I really focus on is leadership, because I don't think that organizations, small or large, always have leadership that retains employees, grows them, and that sort of thing. And what I mean by that is, often when and if we were in the same room, I would ask you here, has anyone ever had a bad boss? And I would say 100 to 99% of the time, everybody always raises their hand. Or I'll ask, has anyone ever worked in a toxic culture? And everybody, same thing, raises their hand. So if we were really, really, really good at leadership and really, really good at training our managers and our cultures in that, then I would only have a couple of people raising their hands instead of everyone. So I really think that organizations should try to leverage leadership, make it be a competitive differentiator for you and your organization. Say, this is what we do at our organization. This is how we train our managers. I would ask you if you know what type of leadership style you have, and is it across the board? So do you know, and these are 10 common leadership styles. If I ask all the managers at your business or your organization, would they all say, oh, absolutely, we all practice visionary leadership or situational leadership, because that's ingrained in us. That's the training that they've had. We've purposely chosen that we want to have this type of leadership within our organization. And this kind of goes back to, too, I'm sure all of you have heard this saying that people don't leave the organization, they leave their managers. So again, I just can't stress enough to you about how you should focus on your leadership and your management style, and that if you want to be able to retain your employees. So the O stands for opportunity. And one of the things I want to mention here, so I'm a big, can they see me, Diana, in the little corner here? Or can they just see the slides?
Yep, they can see you.
Okay, so I subscribe to Harvard Business Review, and one of the articles this time was The Secret to Retaining Talent. So I just want to mention something to you from one of the articles here. It's about your top talent and keeping your top talent. And they do not want to be considered another cog in the wheel. It says here, star performers also need to feel special, which means you can't treat them as if they're just another cog in the machine. What you do need to do is listen to their ideas, give them the opportunity to grow, and take every opportunity to praise them. So again, praise them comes into that recognition. So one of the other things I also like to do when I'm talking to different groups is I want to give you resources. So, and I know some of your small business owners and that you don't maybe have a lot of financial resources for training in that. So I want to give you a resource. Is one of them is edX and Coursera. As you can see, and Diana happened to mention it earlier, so I have this certificate in organizational analysis from Stanford. I got it through one of these. I don't remember which one. I apologize. Maybe, it says right there, Coursera. It cost me $79. $79. So I just think that this is a place that you can send your employees if they're wanting to get additional education and that sort of thing, and it isn't a large cost to you. They also have things in there cost more than $79, but they have what they call mini masters. So you can go to some of these Ivy League colleges and other colleges, University of I think Michigan, that sort of thing, where you can get some of these degrees and additional education from outstanding colleges, and it isn't going to cost you and your organization a lot of money. Obviously, assigning them a mentor or becoming a mentor for that person, especially if they're a star performer, and again, they're wanting to grow, and then obviously giving them some kind of a stretch assignments. I'm also a big believer, I put it on here, I love TEDx talks. They're less than 20 minutes long. And you can really get some good information from those as well. And maybe you give them, say, hey, I'll give you, once a week if you on the clock, if you want to watch a TEDx talk so that you can grow and develop. I would be okay with that. And just an idea there. With the V is for vulnerability, which today, with regards to leadership, is becoming more important that you're willing to be vulnerable with your employees. And they see it as a strength, not a weakness. And you need to remember that it takes courage to be vulnerable. And so your employees are going to see that way. The other thing that it does, when we're vulnerable with somebody else, we develop a different level of relationship with them. And that's part of that, going back to, being a good manager, a good leader, and having that relationship so that they don't want to leave your organization. They don't want to leave you. But in fact, they're not wanting to leave you. You're the reason that they are staying. So speaking of TED Talks, Brene Brown, whose name is down there, had a TED Talk. Again, they're less than 20 minutes. I would encourage you to go watch that if you have not. And if you have, I'm going to guess that it's been a while, and it would be a good refresher for you to go back and watch that. So you really want to have that authentic, meaningful connection with your employees. That's definitely going to have them want to stay. And I'm going to guess, again, if we were in the same room, if I ask you to tell me about the leaders that you've enjoyed the most working for in that, I'm going to guess you had some kind of strong connection and relationship with them. Okay, so E, lots of E's, kind of like my name, Ronnie's got a couple E's on. We got lots of E's here. Everybody, it's human nature. I know there's a lot about diversity right now, but we all want to be treated equal. And that's just our human need to be wanted to be treated equally. So we need to make sure that as small business owners or leaders or that sort of thing, that we're treating our employees fairly. And then of course, there's always, being fairly with regards to race, religion, national origin, all of those. But just even if everybody is the same, if you will, they want to be treated equally. So maybe sometimes you need to step back and see if you think you're doing that. The other thing that I would encourage you to do, and that's part of that being vulnerable, is to go to somebody that you trust and ask them some questions. What do you think of my leadership skills? Do you think I treat everybody fairly? Do you feel like I engage them? That sort of thing. So that can maybe be your first step in being, testing the waters and being a little bit vulnerable with your employees. People like to be empowered. Nobody likes to be micromanaged. So you've got to trust your employees, and they need to trust you. So I see trust as being a two-way street. Again, you need to trust your employees. You need to empower them. You need to tell them, what needs to be done, maybe not even how it needs to be done. Give them that creativity to figure out how to do the job. And then they need, again, to be able to trust you. Unfortunately, probably all of you have worked with a manager that you did not trust as well. So it's that trust going both ways. And then show your employees some empathy. Especially when we've had this, you probably have had to do this in the last couple of years with COVID, or if you had any employees that had COVID, or, a spouse or their children or things like that. And now I understand that there are people that are going to take advantage of things. And I always know there has to be a balance with when you're doing things like this. But again, it's developing that relationship. If you can work with them, maybe they have a sick child and they're saying, I need to watch them during the day. I can do some work at night when my spouse is at home, that sort of thing. That's that flexibility. And again, showing that empathy. And I promise you, if you do that, you will have a stronger bond and a stronger relationship with that employee. So we've talked about love. And retention equals attention. So we're going to give them appropriate type of love. We're going to move on here to marketing. Oh, I think I put this slide in here twice. I'm going to move it on. Market to attract top talent. So now we're going to shift a little bit, and we will go back to the employees again. But we're going to shift here. We were talking about how am I going to retain that top talent? What am I going to do to keep them? And so now I want to talk a little bit, how do we attract top talent? If you do have some openings or something that's come up. So as I mentioned earlier, one of the things that you need to do when you're getting ready to recruit for a position is you need to put on kind of a marketing hat and market your organization. So the first thing that I would encourage you to do is to make sure that you talk about your culture on your career page, if you have a career page. And if somebody on some of these things, if you would like to, me to help you with some of these, I'd be happy to donate an hour to help you draw out some of these things. If you're like, well, I don't know what's unique about us or that sort of thing. But again, make sure that you're highlighting your culture. I can guarantee you that this is more important. And I'm just at the end of the very baby boomers, but the millennials and some of the younger generations, this is important to them. They also want to know that you are contributing and giving back. So when I was working in an organization, we adopted the Children's Cancer Connection, and I made sure that there was things on our career page that showed that we were doing that. That's important to them, and they're looking for it. Also, market your location if you can. I just happened to mention East Village or the historic Valley Junction. But if there's something unique about your organization or that, I would highlight it. I was working for a company up in Ames, and we were trying to bring in people from all over the United States. So people from the East Coast and the West Coast that obviously had the oceans and, the mountains and that, and we couldn't offer that in Ames, Iowa. But, what are the things that we could offer? We had, low crime rates and things like that. And also when people would drive, if we could get them here, when they would drive from the Des Moines airport to Ames, they couldn't believe how open it was. So, just trying to highlight some of those things so that they, are aware of them. And then if you have any type of unique benefits, so I just happened to put maybe have summer hours, or maybe have free popcorn on Fridays, or maybe provide free lunch for your employees, or you stock the kitchen cabinet with healthy snacks, or there's things like that. I'm going to guess that all of you have something that's maybe a little bit different or unique that maybe that you could highlight. Or maybe with regards to you, if you think you give a fair amount of PTO, you want to list that. Or I can't think of anything else right off the top of my head, but just try to focus on and think about and look at what is unique about your business and what's maybe potentially unique about your benefits. I already talked about leadership quite a bit. And again, I think if you have something unique about your leadership or that you want to share, like for example, we have or practice situational leadership at our organization, you just might want to highlight that. We already talked about, again, that you want to make sure that you are developing your top talent in order to keep them. Well, to attract people, you may want to share on your career page what you offer with regards to training and development and how they can grow, or career opportunities or that sort of thing. Other thing with regards to attention and giving your employees attention is some recognition awards. Maybe it's for length of service, that sort of thing. The thing that I would recommend to you is that you do something that's unique for each person. So I'm not saying that you should maybe give a plaque. So you maybe give a plaque to everyone for a 5-year, 10-year, or whatever. But the other thing I would recommend doing is having, you've probably seen those magazines where maybe they can pick out a gift that's unique for them, because one size does not fit all. We're not all the same. And what I would like to have as a gift would not be the same as the rest of you. And that's where you're showing them attention just to them and making them be different. The other thing, and I know not all of you have the budget that F&G Annuities has, but I took this out of the business record. And I know you can't read it, so I will read a few things on here. So F&G had an entire page in the business record, and this is some of the things they said. They have a beautiful new headquarters located at 801 Grand. F&G is ready to welcome team members when it's safe to do so. This was kind of during the pandemic, and will focus on flexibility, employee-centric hybrid work arrangements. And then they talk about what they have to offer: professional development opportunities, volunteer time off and matching gift program, 401k match with immediate vesting. See, that's something that's a little bit different. Employee assistance program, new headquarter perks, free parking, this, which is important. I worked in downtown Des Moines for 10 years, and having free parking is a plus. Discounted gym memberships, modern workplace and amenities, and great views of the Des Moines Metro. So that's just an example of one of the ways that you can kind of highlight what they've done to highlight their organization. Then, as I put over here, I went to the Small Business Summit up in Ankeny and went to see one of the speakers that was talking about something that I'm talking about here today, and that was retention and attracting employees in that. And it was a construction company. The speaker was in HR from a construction company. And she shared this here, that they give a $1,000 bonus to those that refer someone to the organization. And then once that person's been there a year, they give the person that referred that employee a 3-night getaway, including airfare. They get 2 additional days of PTO so they can take this time off. I think they also received some spending money to take with them. Now, I'm going to guess that this company has put a pen and paper and looked at what it costs to do this, and have found that it's a positive return on investment for them. Now, I know not everybody can do that, but I'm just trying to share with you some ideas and some suggestions and some things that are being done during this time when I know that it's hard to find good employees. Diana, we don't know questions yet.
No questions right now. And
all right.
So, if you guys do have questions, feel free to enter that in the chat. But also, if you guys have ways in which your businesses are attracting top talent, I think that would be really fun to see.
Great idea, Diana. I love it. I agree. I think that we're all in this together. So let's learn from each other, and let's share ideas and suggestions. And even if they didn't, it's something, maybe you tried something that didn't work. That's kind of being vulnerable and sharing, what didn't work for your organization. So, okay. So I want to move on to a little bit about hiring for cultural fit. So this is an example of the 4 different types of company cultures, the most common. You can find other ones, but first of all, I think you need to figure out what kind of culture does your organization have. Does everybody agree on it? I can tell you that it can be different between departments within an organization. So for example, the accounting department is probably going to be pretty structured. They're going to have things in place and things that they have to do and that sort of thing. Another area that an organization may have more of a clan environment. So for example, as Diana said, I worked for a city for a short while, and even within a department, sometimes you can have differences. So when I worked for the city, they obviously had a fire department, and I think they had 2 types of cultures going on. They had the clan and the family when they were at the firehouse waiting for a fire and that. And you want to be close with those people because they may be saving your life within a fire, right? But there also has to be structure. When you get to the fire, you can't sit around and decide who's going to be in charge. What are we going to do? How are we going to fight this fire? Somebody has to be in charge, make quick decisions. Everybody has to listen. You don't have time to negotiate or talk about it or that sort of thing. So again, you can have those different, but I think there's usually, for an organization or a company, there is an overarching culture to that type of business. So do you know what that is? And is it on purpose, or did it just happen, kind of happenstance? Do you need to, maybe it's become that toxic work environment that I mentioned earlier. So do you want to realign what your culture looks like? Because again, I want you to use this as a competitive advantage to your organization. Think about this. Many of you have probably not applied for a job at one point in your career because you knew the company culture was toxic. Same thing going back to the manager. There's probably been times in your career, I know there has been for me, that I have not applied for a job because I knew the manager and would not want to work for them. So pay attention to this and make sure that you have a good reputation with regards to a company culture. Go out and look at your Google reviews and see. I was working on somebody with this, and their Google reviews were 1.7. Well, if I was going to look for a job and I went and looked at that and saw that that's what the reviews were, I can guarantee you I'm not going to apply for the job. So that's something else that you can go out and kind of explore. And if you've got a 1.7 or a 2.3 or whatever, what can we do to rectify that and bring that up? Because that will affect the number of applicants that you get and the level of applicants that you will get. And then maybe asking them about the type of culture that they prefer. So I, for example, worked in a small startup company for 11 years. I loved it. It was exciting. It was changing. Things were always happening. And I really, really enjoyed that. And so when I went to the city and the county, that was a little bit harder for me because the structure was different and that sort of thing. Now, my husband is the exact opposite. He spent 20 years in the Air Force. Then he worked for state for 10 years. So he was used to a very structured environment. And he has struggled more in the private sector because it doesn't have that type of structure. So again, when you're interviewing, I think I would ask ask applicants, tell me about the culture that you worked or enjoyed working in the most, and maybe what's the one that you struggled in the most, and ask them why, and kind of dig into that and see if you think they're going to be a good fit for your organization.
Ronnie, there was a question from Melissa, and
Okay.
she was just asking if you have a template for giving those one-on-ones, whether it's with current employees or potentially attracting new employees. How do you, if you have a template for determining those questions for cultural fit?
I don't have a template, but I would be happy if she wants to reach out to me. I'd be happy to visit with her and maybe we could come up with something.
Cool. Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. So again, with regards to the Great Resignation and wanting to attract top talent, we don't want to ignore them. As a Harvard Business Review says, we want to give them opportunities, whether it be through Coursera or edX or some other, type of going to conferences or being a mentor. Let them know that you appreciate them. Remember those top talents? We want to make sure that we're sharing with them that we appreciate them more than once, and then to be specific with them. So I have a little card here, and you can see it here. It's just really small. It's the size of my hand here. And it's to my son. My son went to the University of Iowa, and he was an RA. He ended up actually being an RA for 3 years. And he got this from one of his managers when he was an RA. Has his name up here, really small, handwritten up there. And then it says, hey there, and then there are 4 boxes you could check. She checked 2. You're the best. I'm proud of you. And then she wrote just a tiny little note here, and I want to read it to you. It says, Brandel, which is my son's name, Brandel, your flexibility and willingness to help out, your flexibility and willingness to help out others on staff last night during duty scheduling was so awesome. You're a rock star. Can't wait to see what you'll do this year, Alyssa. Now, the reason I point this out and have kept this in that is, number one, it's so small. She made it specific to him. She didn't just say you rock or you're great or thank you for, she actually went into what he did and what she appreciated. And that makes a big difference. And notes, as you know, are important and people enjoy them. If I could see all of you and I could raise your hands, if you're in your office, whether it be a home office or you're in the business, in your business, is I'm going to guess that each of you would have something around you that somebody has given you. So whether it be a card or maybe some dried flowers that they had given you or something like that, that you have kept because it meant something to you. So you need to think about that and give that gift back to other people as well. And then the last thing that I have there is to be careful of performance punishment. So if you're not familiar with performance punishment, that is when your rock star is such a rock star that you continue to give them more and more and more, because you know you can count on them. They're reliable. They'll get it done. They probably won't say anything about it and that. But I can assure you from being in human resources that some of those are not happy about it, because I've heard it, they've come and talked to me about, they just keep giving me more and more and more. So I understand why you would do that, but you need to be careful about that and how that person is perceiving it. At first, they may be flattered, and that's great. You trust me and you give me these things, but if you do it for too long, too often, without checking in with them, then you need it may become a problem. They may become disenchanted with the job, feel like they're being given too much responsibility, and it's not, it's not fair. It's not fair that I keep giving there because so-and-so's not doing their job. They're giving everything to me. I don't have it here on the slide, but the other thing that one of the worst things you can do as a leader is, if you have a bad performer, is not addressing them, because nothing will make your top performers more dissatisfied than to watch you tolerate a bad employee. They're going to be frustrated. They're going to lose respect for you. And so you need to find ways to address that. And I think in the long run, if you get that person out of the organization, why it's hard and it hurts and it's tough. I've been involved in a lot of terminations. It's not easy, but in the long run, it's for the best. And usually it's the best for the employee as well. I've talked to many people that have been terminated and they're like, thank goodness, that was the best thing that ever had happened to me. I've gone on to something that I enjoy much more. And when they're not performing, a lot of times that person's really under a lot of stress. They know that they're not performing. So something else to think about. So what do employees want to stay? Well, they want a strong vision. They want to know, what do you know what your vision is? Are you sharing your vision with your employees? Is it stated on your website or even your career page, so they can, they go on there, they're looking for jobs and they're like, wow, this is the kind of company I've been looking for. This is what I want, where I want to be, and that. And they want to be inspired. So if you think of, strong vision and being inspired, we all think of Martin Luther King. I don't expect you to go out and be, go to the level that he did, but think about how he inspired and how people wanted to follow him. That can be the same for a leader. If you're sharing a strong vision, you can inspire people. Again, that's a way to attract people to come to your organization because of you. Make sure that you listen to your employees and know that their opinions matter. And even if you think it's something that is silly, then you can usually find 10%. I went through a program about positive intelligence. There's emotional intelligence and positive intelligence. And in this program, this gentleman talked about how there's usually 10% of what somebody says that's good. So look for that 10%. Well, that's a good idea. And we could do this, or, how could you add to their idea to know that they've been heard and that you've listened and that you at least liked a piece of their idea and then add on to that as to how you think you could make it become a reality, if you can. And then they want to know that they're making a difference and contributing to something of a higher power. And again, I see this much more in the millennials and the younger generations than, you know, when I started out in the workforce and when I was looking for a job. So as you can see there, I said, no, they're contributing to a higher power. So I use the example of somebody that was making car parts. So taking something that like that, we make quality car parts so people can travel safely to see their loved ones. Now, who wants to work for that company? If we're in the same room, who wants to work for that company versus we make car parts? I'm going to guess that you'd rather work for the ones making high quality ones so they can go travel for their loved ones. So that's where that, you know, you're putting on that marketing hat. And, you know, if I was working in this type of environment, that might be something I'd put in the wall, on the wall in the area where they're, you know, making the car parts, or on the doors. They go out the doors, they push the door. Every time they push the door, they see that. Just some ideas. They want a sense of belonging. Again, that's something that all of us as humans, we want to feel like we belong. So what are you doing to make sure everybody feels like they belong in the organization? And then I would highly encourage asking them what they want. And the reason that I say this, as you can see, I have this iceberg of ignorance, and it's saying executives only see 4% of the problems. So if you're not asking, you don't know. And I would encourage you to do, if you're asking, to do that in a safe environment where they feel like they can speak up, and you're doing it in a way that they will share. So for example, one of my previous CEOs, we had interviewed a candidate and he wanted to know what I thought of this person. He's asking me as he's down the hall about 30, 40 feet walking into a meeting. He says, what did you think of that candidate? Well, he's okay. I mean, he didn't really give me an opportunity to really share what I thought of that candidate. So you're got to make sure that you're doing it in the right environment. And again, if they feel safe and that it's not going to be used against them if they are honest with you. The other reason I think it's really important to do employee surveys is that, this is again with being in human resources, I've heard many times from the managers and from the employees, and I can tell you they're not always on the same page. And it's my experience that often the managers think things aren't that bad. We're doing this change initiative. Things aren't that bad. They'll be fine. They'll be okay. And the employees over here think the sky is falling. Now, I think it's somewhere in between. I don't think it's always that good, and I don't think it's always that bad, but that's their perception, which becomes their reality. And you're not going to know what that perception is or what that reality is unless you ask and give them a place to do it safely. And if it needs to be confidential or whatever. All right. So we've talked about give your employees love so that they never want to leave. And remember that retention equals attention, that you've got to give your employees attention. Again, if that star performer is doing great and you're spending all your time and energy on this problem employee over here and you're ignoring the top performer, then you're at risk of losing your top performer. So don't do that. Give them that attention, give them that individualized attention and that. We talked about how to market your business to attract applicants. You're going to have to look at your individual situation. Where are you located? What's unique about your benefits? What's unique about your culture? What's unique about your leadership style? Anything like that that you can pull out that makes you different, I will put that on your career page and or in your job descriptions or things like that. And if you go out there and kind of look at different companies and that, I think you'll get a good idea of what I'm talking about and those that have done a good job of doing that. Again, we want to make sure that we interview for cultural fit because not everybody fits into every type of cultures. I gave you that example between myself and my husband, and that we work well in totally different types of culture. And again, I didn't really highlight it here, but I would also, try to interview for for attitude, because it's easier to teach skills than it is to teach somebody attitude. And then we talked about retaining your top talent during the Great Resignation and make it the Great Recognition, so that you're recognizing those employees. And then we also talked about what employees want to stay. A lot of it just comes down to they want to know that you care about them, that you appreciate them, and that you'll be there for them. So I think that was it. Just a little information about me. If anybody has any questions, or I think it was, is it Alyssa? She wants to reach out to me. I'm happy to visit with her and see if I can help her out. If I can help any of the rest of you, I would love to do that. So
thank you, Ronnie. And so we do have a couple of questions. So first off, when you were talking about the performance punishment, that really resonated with a lot of people, it looks like. And so there was just a lot of great feedback around even just that language and how that's happening in a lot of organizations. And so a question coming up next, it looks like, how are we able to get this recording so someone else can watch it in our organization? And so I can definitely answer that. We'll be sharing out this recording, but Ronnie, if you have any tips on how to gently, share this with others and what's the right kind of language to use?
Okay, so I'm wondering, I guess I'd know a little bit more information, like if this is somebody that's wanting to give it to their manager, I'm guessing that they're wanting to. Yeah,
let's assume that. I don't know that, but we'll just assume that.
Okay. Well, sometimes one of the ways that you can ask is you could say something like, I went to the top 5 with the Greater Resignation Partnership and saw the speaker talk on this subject. I think it was really good. Would you like to see it as well, or would you like to? Could I share some ideas and some suggestions with you? A lot of times, if you ask people questions, they're most likely not to say no. They're going to say, no, I don't want to see it. No, I don't want to hear your ideas. So that may be one way for you to open that door to be able to share the information with them. I hope that answered that question or was helpful. That would probably be my approach to if I was going to manage up to someone and bring it up to someone that was above me, is just to share what I went and saw and ask them some questions about what they'd like to see it. Or I think she had some really great ideas how we could bring in more talent. Would you like me to share those with you? I don't think anybody's going to say no. I don't want to know.
Yeah, and just making the time for it. So I think that's great. Yeah. And it looks like we have a question from Ted. And so he was asking, how do you interview for attitude?
Good question, Ted. Well, I said the interview, some of it is paying attention. And I know a lot of things are done now on Zoom. But when I was doing in person, I would ask, or the receptionist or administrative assistant, whoever, when they came in the door, knew to share things with me. So how did they treat the administrative assistant when they came in the door? Were they above that person? Were they polite to them? Were they nice to them? Do they respond quickly to your emails, your getting back with you with your calls, listening to some of the ways that they address things? Like, for example, if you ever ask, can you tell me about a time when you've had to work with a difficult manager? Or can you tell me, is everything everybody else's fault? Like, we've all worked with a bad manager, right? So if I was interviewing Diana and I said, can you tell me about a manager you've had to work with and how you dealt with that? I wouldn't think negative of Diana because she's had a bad manager, because I think we all have, but how did she handle that situation? How did she address it? And if I ask her more questions, again, those people, maybe you've even interviewed, that's never their fault. They never made any mistakes. It was always their coworkers. They had problems with their managers. You know, you can start to see what kind of attitude they have. And if you're not sure, there's nothing wrong with interviewing somebody a second time. Like if you're on the fence, like, I don't know, I just don't know, I'm going to have them back in for another interview, or have somebody else interview them, you know, that you trust, and say, I want your take on this candidate. What do you think? So off the top of my head, Ted, those are some of the things that I would pay attention to with regards to their attitude. And yeah.
It looks like someone chimed in too, Ashley, just sharing how asking questions around, tell me about a time you had fun at work, or tell me about your current manager. So some great dialogue there between everyone. And I do have a question. So how could you empower your existing employees to also recognize their peers? Is there a good way to, like, whether it's putting someone's work anniversary on every single person's calendar within that team? But have you ever come across that in teams, and not just coming from the top, but having the peers recognize each other?
Well, I think that if you have, I'm wondering if building, first of all, starting with some team building activities and building that strong connection and relationship with them, and doing some things that maybe aren't necessarily work related, and getting to know each other more on a personal, appropriate level. I think that, again, when you have that connection with people, that you're more likely, if Diana and I have a connection, I keep picking on you today, Diana, you know, if we have a connection and she did a really great job, or she did a presentation, I'm much more likely to go up to Diana and say, great job, you knocked it out of the park. I'm really, you know, I'm proud of you. You did a great job. And so again, it's that building that relationship and that bond between the team members. And there's somewhat, in my opinion, things start at the top and float, you know, downward. Now, not always, but a lot of times. So what is the leader modeling? Is that, you know, and so if I'm your leader and I am all business, I think that's going to affect my team. But if I'm modeling that, I'm always, you know, giving people positive feedback and telling them they did a great job, and of course addressing them if they haven't in private, then that's going to make a difference between the team members as well. And or maybe tell them, you know, your expectations, you know, of what you want. I think it'd be great if, I think in a team meeting saying, I think it'd be great if all of you, you know, celebrated each other's wins. So, yeah, and there's nothing wrong with the idea of anniversary dates, and some birthdays, don't put years. Some people are weird even about their birthdays. They don't want to celebrate them and everybody know when their birthday is. So that one's probably more touch and go than you would actually think. But yeah, different things like that.
Awesome. Do we have any other questions from the chat? Please share it if you guys do have any questions. And then I'll just share right now too that the next Top 5 series will be May 25th. And it actually fits right into what Ronnie has been talking about. It's all about the ways to interview for the right people and how to actually find those right people, which, you know, that's like a secret weapon for anyone right now that is hiring. So we'll share details there. But yeah, it doesn't look like we have any further questions in the chat. So Ronnie, thank you for your time today. And we'll be sharing this out to everyone. I know we had a couple of questions about sharing your slides and all the great contact and information in that. So we'll be sending that out here as well in that recording. So if you do have people that you'd like to nudge to watch this, you can certainly share in that way. And with that, Ronee, do you have any closing thoughts, ways that people can follow your journey as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, thank you so much for giving up an hour of your morning to be here. I appreciate it. And I hope I've given you some nuggets that you can take away and can help you with your retention and with attracting applicants to your organization. But yes, I have there my website. I guess I didn't put mine on LinkedIn as well. If you look for Ronee Andersen, you can find me, and I'd love to connect with you either on LinkedIn, or if you want to send me a message, or if I can help you in any way, or you think of a question that you have with regards to this. Afterwards, happy to help. So let me know.
Cool. Thank you, Ronee. We appreciate it.
All right.